speak for a few minutes about what you're doing in relation to that. So, my name's Hugh Baber. I come from New Hampshire, and I actually have started 4 years ago a nonprofit organization called SOSUA 75. And what that is, it's a nonprofit organization based on trying to amplify two very little known stories that are connected to the Holocaust, but that apply today very much so as it relates to immigration and refugees. So, by way of very brief background, Lou is known as one of the Dominican godfathers of baseball. You have to really know baseball. I'm definitely showing my age here, but these three brothers are the ones who basically got the Dominican baseball empire. The story is that here are Jewish refugees being saved from a racist, obviously religious racist dictator, now going into the hands of another dictator who was basically trying to lighten the race. He wanted to import European settlers to intermarry with the darker skinned Dominicans and Haitians to actually lighten the race. Which, by the way, I mentioned in the last class, he ultimately did do that. I mean, I've been there probably 12 times in the last 3 or 4 years, so I know the country very well. Everyone knows about Dominican baseball, probably man, seriously. But if you go to the north section, this is Santiago, which is the largest city in the north, and San Domingo is the capital. And here's where all the baseball academies are, and up here is actually where those settlers settled in Sosua. The lion's share of the folks on the northern coast are mostly more lighter colored, like he succeeded in that happening. Whereas down on the southern coast, it's a more darker skin. And last class you asked us, so how many people have been to the DL? Other than Punta Cana, I was going to say who's going to raise it, because that's where everyone says they go. Did you go to Punta Cana? Is that where you went to Punta Cana? Okay. Same with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't mean to make fun of it, it was just the general place where everybody goes for tourism, but it's a beautiful country in a lot of ways. But so this is the North Coast region that I'm talking about. So these settlers who had the benefit of this decree at the conference and having the ability to travel there. Again, I don't know if this whole Gilligan's Island analogy even resonates at all with you guys, but it does with me because I love the show. Basically, these people were dropped in from other professions that they did. They had to come there under conditions that they would be agricultural workers, not their former profession, in the city. You know, accountants and doctors or lawyers or businessmen, whatever. So they had to be dropped in, and they landed at the United Fruit Company, which is the predecessor of Chiquita Banana Company now. And they basically had to make a life for themselves. And so they started a number of different industries. They eventually settled upon pasture land because they tried to grow some crops. They tried to do basket weaving, some mattress making. They tried some crazy things which didn't work out. But they did fall upon becoming farmers and starting the largest dairy cooperative in the country. Now, when these settlers first arrived, there was only 2 million people in the Dominican Republic. Now there's 10 million. So they were a big part of starting this whole, it's called Producto Sosua, which is a dairy products company which spread throughout the whole island. So as it relates to this, which you say, what the heck is this?
All of the countries in Latin America, of course, should be there, right? Became independent actually early on in 1822, but then was occupied or controlled by Haiti, which was the first black-governed independent country in the world, and was became independent of France. Then once again became under the control of Spain, but became independent in 1865. I think it's interesting to see because all Latin American countries have gone through a lot of regime changes, right? Notably, of course, it's a dictatorship that ended in 61, then a military regime. We've seen that in every Latin American country. Full democracy, although with troubles, since 1996. Like many Latin American countries, I think we see also in the Dominican Republic problems with rule of law, judicial system that sometimes is troublesome, high levels of corruption everywhere. So the institution, but it continues on, right? And it continues to improve. That's important, I think, as well. It is a sizable economy, lots of tourism, but other things as well. For Dan Brown's, we need to sugarcane, gold mining a little bit. And then of course this whole thing with baseball, which I don't know much about, but it seems to be, we have joked about it now so often. You even made the point that baseball, you're born with that. I'm like, I don't know about that.
Well, when they start rolling the ball when you're a toddler, it's so ingrained. It's soccer, which I know you're not much more familiar with. And basketball or other sports, it's if you're in the Dominican Republic, it's baseball that you grow up with. So, hence Pedro Martinez, David Ortiz, Rafael Devers, now on and on and on.
Conditions on how they could live there as well. We now see a similar kind of story, not as conditional, but we see this story that I think is a fascinating story that is about Germany, but there's many other countries. In the previous class we talked about Jordan as well, being welcoming to refugees, but also that is not purely humanitarian, that there's often other motives in play as well. The racist thing of the Trujillo regime, economic benefits, of course, for that country as well.
And again, this is our first day, so I hate to interrupt you, but it was the fact I didn't bring up the last two lectures, which I think is the most notable of all. That's that one of the things that's really great there is that there is no prejudice there. Like there's no prejudice against when you talk to the original settlers who were there. And I wear a Jewish star, William David thing, and it's amazing. People come up to me and they'll say, "Oh, you believe in God." So it's not only a matter of a cross or any other sign. They look at this as you believe in God. And they don't have, when you talk to these original settlers who came there, they said it was the most amazing thing. They, for the first time, never faced prejudice like, hey, you Jews or whatever. It was just everyone working for one. And everyone there works, which is a lesson you could really learn here. This is from me from IBM, 80, 90 hours a week, not even knowing what I was doing anymore. They live for the day, they live for the family, for some bachata music, and play some ball, and they just provide for themselves for the one day, and then the next day comes, and it's just a refreshing change from the high-paced world here in the United States. So, but the fact there was no prejudice and these people specifically cited that, I thought it was really important and a strong point.
So like in Germany, we're not there yet, I think, but what I thought was that whole narrative is so interesting because it started out with Germany welcoming refugees from a humanitarian point of view because of their troubled history, right? So that was all the story. And then IMF, so I have the different, you see 16, 17, 18 news items on that. Here the IMF says, oh, well, that's a really good idea because the German economy is booming. And the population is aging. There's not many people coming back. So they need young people to come in and work in the German economy. Which is interesting enough because refugees tend to be younger, active, entrepreneurial because they pick up all the stuff and they take that risk, right? So there's something to say of that. But there's also in the longer run, more difficult stories, and that, for instance, the World Economic Forum talked a bit about this because when the refugees were there for a bit longer time, it wasn't all that.
Thank you so much. So let's have a moment of silence.
A major source in making sure that this happened tonight, so I want to make sure to express my thanks to him and also to Jeff for all that you said, to Robin, to everyone, Josh, who were part of making this happen, and of course on tonight of all nights. And the Holocaust commemoration is as big as it gets, so this is very, very huge. And actually the prayer that Jeff just said, which the Kaddish is something that's actually very familiar to me, and in the sense that my mother passed away a month ago, and I was saying the Kaddish as much as possible, so sure, today I said it again in honor of my parents, who I know, 5 years ago, if someone had told me that I'd be doing this and talking about these stories and doing something other than going mad, basically doing IT, sorry. And I probably never would have believed them, but it's kind of funny how you can kind of reinvent your life based on things that are of interest to you or the path that you come across, and that's exactly kind of what happened to me. And I'm going to try and hopefully today share that journey with you. And I can tell you, because I know there's folks who went to the Yankees-Red Sox game tonight, and of course, got to believe in the back of my mind, I'm probably going to be checking the score when I run out. But it means a lot that you guys would forego that, me understanding the magnitude of that, to come here and hear this story. So hopefully it's motivational to you in any way or in some way. for me, it's interesting that I was able to stitch together baseball and the Holocaust. And again, this is a story that I'll go through with you, but you know, I just think that you can reinvent yourself at any point in life. And I never made it to the big leagues. I made it to the minor leagues. I played at Michigan State, for years, and for 4 years, and then I played for the Oakland A's back in 1985. And then after that, I had a couple chances with the Red Sox, but I never actually made the Red Sox or hit the big league. So I kind of think that it's interesting that you still can use your baseball interest, past your baseball playing days. Because everyone thinks that they're the man and they're going to make it when you're in college. Let's face it, I did too. But then all of a sudden you're kind of faced with the reality of how few people really make it. And it's interesting that as time goes on, it still can come back around. So hopefully that would be evidence to you that it can come back around, and it certainly has for me in these 2 projects that I'm doing. So this is part of getting old too, sadly. All right, so. By the way, I want this to be as bi-directional presentation as possible. So if you have any questions along the way or something like that, please feel free to raise your hand or ask the question. I modestly speaking, this is a little brief background or bio, but I was raised in Buffalo, New York, grew up there where there's a ton of snow, the Academy of Medias Rojas. So there's the mayor, Antigua was there, so these were all the kids at the Boys and Girls Club in Lawrence. And they signed the banner. And then this is actually the mayor of Providence at the time. His name was Angel Taveras, who was one of 2 Dominican mayors. Actually, at the time, there were 2. When I took this base around, then was William Lantigua, Bill Lantigua, who was the mayor of Lawrence. So the mayor of Lawrence and the mayor of Providence. And it's just amazing how deep baseball runs, because, all I had to do was call up the office, and the guy's like, come on in, we'll clear the calendar, come on in to show it. They were so interested to be able to see this as well because of the proud Dominican heritage as related to baseball. And then, as I took the base, so that's all the dirt I was telling you about that I put together, and that's the actual base itself. It has Dominican Republic on one side, Puerto Rico on the other. So when I flew over to the DR on JetBlue Airlines, they caught wind of the fact of what I was doing, and actually the plane was running late out of Portland, Maine. They actually held a plane on the ground in LaGuardia for 2 hours beyond the time it was supposed to leave, because they understood the significance of this mission of me getting it and delivering it to the Red Sox Academy. So here I am coming onto the plane, and I had to buy an extra seat for this base because it was all wrapped up. So I had to, imagine coming onto a plane where people have been waiting for 2 hours, like what the hell, who the hell's holding up this plane? And then I come on and people weren't all that friendly, but then afterward they came out on the PA system and announced what I was doing, because we're all flying to Santo Domingo, and then they clapped, and when I got off the plane they did this little ceremony. So that's the head of JetBlue and the staff in Santo Domingo, and this is probably, I could die after this picture, it actually got cut off a little bit. So after I delivered the base there, so by the way, this here is a logo of the Jimmy Fund, because I also had a family member who suffered from cancer. So I was giving this space in honor of the Jimmy Fund, and also in honor of the New England community. So this is in Jesus Alou. So the guy on the right is one of the Dominican baseball godfathers. Like, there's 3 brothers, Matty Alou, Felipe Alou, and Jesus Alou. And here's a funny one for the ball players in the room. So when I was referred to call him, they said, call up this guy in the Dominican Republic. He's the head of the Red Sox. His name is Jay Alou. And I said to myself, I've heard the name Alou before. I'm like, Jay Alou, that's really strange. But so the interesting part is, when I got there and I asked him, it's because it's blasphemous in a Catholic country to say Jesus strikes out. So or Jesus strikes out, because then when he played there, they were never allowed to say on the radio, Jesus strikes out, so that's why he goes by Jay. So anyway, so I've been back now 3 times, and actually it's great, we're great contacts. So of course there's Pedro, and in his office there's both the mahogany thing of David Ortiz, of course there's Pedro and his famous thing, and so this is, there's me and that ceremony there. And so that, believe it or not, that base is now going to be the permanent entryway greeting piece of the Red Sox Academy, and it belongs to the Red Sox and not to the Yankees or any other team. So I'm really happy about that. This is all just leading up to the whole story. You have a question?
The day the bass arrived.
Oh, right. By the way, this is Jocelyn, my fiance, so she's the one who's put up with all my crap for all these years since this whole thing started, and videographer as well. So the part I left out was that the bass, after I secured it, arrived to me on the day of the Boston Marathon bombing, which of course is coming up, the anniversary very soon. And so when it came, I just said, what can I do? How can I help? I don't know what made me think about it. And then I just decided I want to donate the bass, and everything has happened since then. This is Pedro Martinez in the office holding the banner, and there's Jesus Alou as well, because I want to get the actual story. So this is at the front entrance, having to do with refugees and immigration. It's something that just, these things just keep coming up. It's not like there's any really resolve over a lot of them. There's a lot of talk. And things that happened in the past impact what happens today. You know, there's relevance to what happened in the past to what is going on today. So there's another reason why the timing of this, having starting 4 years ago and now all these interesting things popping up about it is fascinating to me. These are just more pictures of them just looking nice and standing around outside. All right, this is the main character. This is Rafael Trujillo. So he was the ruler of the country of the DR from 1930 to 61, 31 years. It's really interesting in the sense that people who signed in. And then this is actually something I want to pass around, because this is actually this gentleman, Mark Figueredo, who I showed you a picture of, was kind enough, because he saw what an overriding emotional experience it was for me, because actually, honestly, I sat in the room and I cried because I couldn't believe the number of lives that were determined as a result of what happened at that day. So he was so impressed by how overcome I was and how committed I was to this that he gave me this, which is passed on. This is the actual doorknob from the exterior of that conference, one of the doorknobs on the exterior of the room where the conference took place. So it has the Edelweiss flower on it, which is the Sound of Music, The Hills Are Alive. I'm not going to sing.
Yeah, that's great.
More parts?